What's big, red, and eats rocks?
Oh, God.
Okay, what's big, red, and eats rocks?
It's not
Big,
Santa Claus.
red rock eater.
See, I'm going to have to remember that one. That's like my dead chicken one.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Yeah,
so
it's like so obvious. It's all right.
Awesome.
If you are a mountain biker, I am sure you know the name Steve Peat. Steve, currently the head coach, team manager of the Santa Cruz Syndicate. You know, just prolific downhill racer, one of the best in the world. 17 World Cup wins, 2 World Cup overalls, and a World Championship title. He's from Sheffield, United Kingdom, and just recently, Steve came out with an autobiography that was co-written by Tim March, called Forged by Speed, the making of a mountain bike world champion. And today we are joined by Tim March. How you doing, sir?
Yeah.
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me onto your into your show.
Yeah.
And to an audience that may be interested and hopefully are interested in the book.
Absolutely. Like I'm excited because you've got some history that we were starting to touch on. Ex BMX. Were you a pro? I guess a pro, right?
Yeah. I was a pro. I started off. My history is straightforward. Like, I'm 61 now. I started off racing motocross bikes when I was 14, 15. Went into adults, was sponsored by Mako for a little while. And at the time that I was racing motocross bikes, BMX was beginning to gather, some real energy.
Right.
And you could start to see BMX bikes in the pits at Grand Prix races, in American Grand Prix races. So pictures were appearing from Carlsbad with motocross riders riding BMX bikes, Bob Hanna, these kind of things. So that crossed over into what I was doing with motocross bikes. So I just got into BMX, and I ended up being a pro in BMX and stopping racing motorbikes and going into that. So yeah, that's what I did for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. But you moved
into like organizing the events after you raced and kind of.
No, I had a team. I had a really, really big team that was global. All our bikes were made by Rickman in America, over here in England. So they were all ex-motocross riders. And so we had a big international presence. But when I stopped riding, I had a brief period not out of the sport, but just out of the limelight, and then got back into publishing.
Oh, yeah. And you worked for Dirt?
Yeah, I worked for Dirt.
Yeah.
So started working, and they were doing Ride BMX magazine as well at the time. So, and then we did Moto magazine, a few other things. But yeah, I got into publishing. And
that gets me to, like, how did you end up doing this with Steve? Like, how did you end up connecting with him and being a co-writer?
Because before I started working for Dirt magazine at 4130 Publishing, I went to a couple of downhill races because I had a couple of mates of mine that were working. I don't know whether you ever heard of the magazine Grip. Did you ever hear of that?
Yep. No, with a B at the end?
Grip was really a really, really good magazine. And it was Jerry Dyer and Paul Bliss had a downhill mountain, and it was excellent. And I'd known Paul and Jerry for a while, but Paul better. And Jerry Jerry knew that I could write. You know, I'd written some stuff, not a lot, but and so I went to a couple of downhill mountain bike races that Steve was at. And so whilst I was there, I witnessed Steve win some races. And so one of the articles I wrote appeared in Grip that Steve read back then, and then maybe another one that I'd written that had gone in Dirt or something. I can't remember. And so he really, really liked that. I didn't know at the time. I didn't know he really liked it at the time. I just wrote it because at that time I didn't know Steve. I knew of his riding. I knew of his notoriety and his populism and all those things that get dragged along with him because he's very popular.
Yep.
I mean, he's a huge character in this country. And so when I got approached to write the book, and it wasn't just me that was approached. I think there were probably 3 or 4 people in the pot, I would think, to do it. maybe I ended up writing it because I was the least expensive. I don't know. I don't know. You'd have to ask the publishers about that. But I was in the pot because Steve wanted me in the pot. I know that Mike Rose was also in the pot, and Mike was the editor at Dirt magazine.
Right.
And the reason I made the joke about the money is because I know Mike asked for more money than I did. So if I'd have known how hard the writing the book was going to be, my fee would have been out of the ballpark. But that's another story. But that's how it started, from when Steve told me that he'd read the stuff that I'd written about him a long time ago, that he really liked it. And I think with the publisher wanted to provide, my understanding is they wanted to provide someone to write the book that wasn't from mountain biking, and Steve was pretty adamant. I think I stand to be corrected on this, but I think Steve was pretty adamant it had to be someone who knew about mountain biking and knew him, and had an understanding of what his legacy was. Now, rather than just someone who didn't know that, you know?
Yeah. Now did you end up, like, do you get together with him and then write the book together, or does he write portions and you write portions? How's that work?
I wrote all of it.
You wrote all of it? Okay. But you're using him.
It happened at a funny time because it was just before COVID.
Yeah.
Hit. So when we'd agreed terms to do the book, we thought that we'd probably end up having maybe 4 or 5 meetings. I'd go to see Steve in Sheffield. We'd sit down, put the tape recorder on, record a load of stuff, and that would be some of the book. And that never happened because of COVID. And then we had a couple. In my family, we had some very, very, people died during COVID. Sadly,
sorry to hear that.
And so we went through. That's okay. It's okay. We went through a bumpy time. So it made. Sorting it out and how it was going to manifest made it quite difficult. And so Steve then told me that he had some diaries and he had all his press cuttings from riding. And I just go, okay, great, you've got them. He goes, well, I'll bring them down if you want, because then you could still drive as long as you were kind of driving somewhere.
Yeah,
stayed so many meters away from somebody else. You could do that. So he drove down from Sheffield, which is probably 3 or 4 hours away, maybe a bit longer.
And Tim, you're in London?
No, I'm down on the south coast, in the middle of the south coast, in a place near Poole.
Gotcha. Oh.
Which is right on the south coast in the middle. So he drove down here, bought my partner a lovely bunch of flowers and some whiskey to kind of soothe our aching hearts at the time, and was just lovely. But what I didn't realise about Steve's diaries was that there were, I think, probably over 20 years worth, and every single page had an entry in it.
Wow.
Every single page had an entry. And so when I started going through it, and the fact that we couldn't see each other really, it was difficult for me to travel. Right. Before COVID had hit and everybody knew about COVID, my partner and I had COVID, but we didn't know what it was at the time. And I was struggling with really, really badly with vertigo. So I was sometimes I couldn't stand up. I'd be sometimes I was in bed, and I was really struggling to know when I was going to be able to travel. So I just thought, right, I'll just immerse myself in what's in these diaries. So I just got a load of Post-it notes and started making notes on year by year on what was happening. And very, very quickly, I kind of had an idea what the book would be like. And then that coincided with me having a couple of really good conversations with his mum about his childhood, and which was just hilarious. His mum is the most amazing person. Like, she is, if you want to know part of Team Peat is she couldn't be more Team Steve. Like,
right.
She's amazing. And so her influence.
Did she go with him? Do you know if she went with him to races and stuff?
I think not really. This is more when he was younger.
Oh, okay.
Because obviously reading in the book, his upbringing's pretty interesting in terms of the things that went on for him and his brothers within the family home and stuff. It's not all what is it, Partridge Family, let's say.
Yeah. His dad sounds like his dad was pretty
strict.
Strict is probably an understatement.
Okay.
Yeah. His dad had a temper. I don't think that would be something Steve would disagree with.
Yeah.
And so his mum was amazing through that, and very, very supportive of him. And you get the idea that he's not formed at all in those early years. He's just a kid that just loves going out, having a good time with his mates. He's the guy, if you want to go out on a Friday night and have a weekend, he's your man.
Yeah.
He is full on your man. Like, you won't get anybody else like him. And he's been like that for a long time. It was in him before he got on a mountain bike. And so the story was quite interesting, because when I started to read the diaries, it's not like that stopped.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't know what you would have in America in terms of your sportsmen that carried on like they were in a rock band. So you've got this,
like Keith Richards.
He just keeps doing it. But
it would be. He's just like over here we make a joke. He's like a 70s football star, because there was a big drinking culture in football in the UK in the 70s. I'm sure there was before that, but that's my era that I know about it. And those guys played great football too. And Steve is just one of those people that's managed to have a lifestyle that he is not compromised either side of it.
Right.
Wow.
Like the social side is just as important as the riding side.
He integrates.
It's incredible. I'm in awe of it because I'm not like it.
Yeah.
That was one thing that blew me away about the book. Like, if you've known about Steve Peat at all, you kind of knew he was what we'd call like a party animal, and he had a big personality and liked to go out and do shenanigans. But I didn't really understand how much he was partying until I read the book, and I thought, holy shit. And then I noticed, when he finally won the world championship, that weekend he didn't drink. So one of the things I wanted to ask you is if he had balanced that differently, do you think he would have won more?
Well, they're the questions I asked him. Because the conversations that we had, get back to your original digging about, but we had a lot of conversations, Steve and I, and I've known him for a long time because I was working at Dirt from 2000 until probably 2009 maybe, or something like that. I mean, and they're good years for Steve, those, and I know Mike really well and all the crew. Steve Jones, that's a heavy duty down. Alex Rankin doing all the Earth films.
Yep.
I got Alex in at 4130 to make the films for us. So we were kind of mainlining downhill at that time, and we knew what Steve was like. We knew Steve. Like, I wouldn't say I knew him very well then. I'd helped him. I when he was with GT, he'd phone me up, or I'd phoned him up about something or other, and I ended up having to recommend him go and see U2's accountants because of a tax issue he had over here with all the money he was earning with GT. And the funny thing was that was in his diaries, and he couldn't even remember that. And so there's this thing. Tim phoned me about U2's accountant, and all this stuff. But Steve's way of doing things is unique to him. Some people can't. I don't think many people are that confident in their ability and their mental strength, resilience, whatever you want to call it, to be able to pull those two things off. Like and you can see there's been some casualties in mountain biking. I'm not going to name names, but there's some casualties who have struggled with that, and it's hard. Steve maintained it all the way through. The question you've asked me is, I asked him that question. I said, you do realize that your career would have been way different if you hadn't have drunk. I mean, one of the main things was, which I mentioned in the book, which was every time he got run down, picked up viruses, back issues, it's usually following some kind of pattern in terms of what he was, let's say, what downtime was.
Yeah.
In what he was doing. But also, there's another side of it, I think, which, because we dug around this stuff, I didn't want just it to be a book that you could read and then think, oh, I really didn't learn much about Steve.
Yeah.
I didn't know already. Because you guys know, I'm sure, he's probably one of the most photographed, written about, interviewed downhill mountain bikers in the world anyway.
Right.
And so once you start to watch all that footage and listen to that, you realize that he's got a very, very straightforward, straight way of answering stuff. I was not really interested in that myself for writing the book. So when I was talking to him about me writing the book, I said, I don't really want to tell that story of you. I want to go in a bit deeper than that. I want to get some stuff that when people read this, whether they're from mountain biking or not, that they actually learn about you. And it's a story about you, you know? And so to answer that question, he said, well, of course I probably would have won more, but I wouldn't have had anywhere near the amount of fun I did.
That's a good answer, actually.
and so why would I do that?
Yeah.
You know, if the end result of that was just kind of winning more races, well, so what? You know, all right, it might, and I know there's a payoff for that, because you can tell there is when he wins the Worlds.
Yeah,
like that feeling, I'm sure, is like it's been built. It's been so close, and if you think when he spun out so close to the edge previously, when he was miles in front, you know, that was the party Steve. That wasn't the non-drinking Steve, or that was a guy that was way in front, miles in front. He only had to cruise to the finish line and blows it out in a turn. So, yeah, he's got no regrets. Like, there's no regrets. That was my understanding of it, and that's, I think, I'm hoping what you kind of comes across in the book, because
it does.
I think mainly as well is because he's seen some stuff. He's seen some friends have a hard time because of choosing other ways of life and other things. And I think the one thing I know about him, and this is, Steve absolutely loves mountain biking. You know, if you cut him in half, he's got mountain biking written through him. He's a mountain biker. That's what he is. And so, you know, you can't really fault that.
It's amazing to me, because I've run teams and I've been an athlete, if you want to call it that. I had a career, which I wouldn't call a career because I never got paid.
Yeah.
But I've met these people. There's this type of person who can jump into a sport and just, without even thinking about it, just do so well.
Right.
And then I've met the other one, which is more like me, which works so hard and never gets there.
Well, I think he worked hard, at least from the book. It looked like he worked really hard. He just partied a lot too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
I think it's difficult to, I couldn't separate those things, but Steve's a hard grafter. Like if Steve's gone out and, this is all in the book, but if he's gone out and he's drunk 8 pints of beer of a night, in the morning he'll be up at 7 o'clock and ride 50 miles in the sheet snow and sleet and to ride that off.
Yeah.
And he will ride it, and he'll log how long it took him, and he'll log what his average speed was. You know, the whole thing will be logged, and it's not because he's doing it because it's a status thing. It's just that's what he does.
Yeah. He's just keeping track.
He does the work.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, he rode over here, which in the early days on a rigid bike, because he came from a cross country background. He was a cross country racer that ended up racing downhill. You know, and he went fast on a rigid bike. You know, he was a big thing, and I hadn't heard of him right early on, and then all of a sudden everybody started talking about him. So this is when he was on his Kona. It's a rigid bike. Yeah. He's sponsored by, you know, he's getting a bit of help from the bike shop, and everybody's going, because Jason McCroy's kind of around at that time, and you've got these other big names that are about, but everybody's talking about this really skinny kiddie from Sheffield, who is just an absolute hammerhead, like an absolute hammerhead, and that was where it started. He did put the work in, but not necessarily on the tracks to start with. His brothers all rode bikes, they all had push bikes.
Yeah.
So he's brought up in it. His dad had a trials bike and was very good at trials and very well respected trials rider up in Yorkshire, which is, a big thing up there. Well, it's a big thing everywhere.
Moto trials.
Yeah.
Moto trials, yeah.
And when you say push bike, just
that's British for just pedal bike.
Pedal bike, not a motorcycle.
No, it's just a pedal bike. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Tim, I was stationed at RAF Mildenhall for a couple of years, just outside of Cambridge, so I can translate between English and American English. He's hard worker. He's a hard worker.
Yeah, I grew up in that era and kind of participated a little bit in that stuff and got to see these guys from a spectator, standpoint. And they were just bigger than life, and he was always like, one of the top people that you would talk about, after a weekend of racing. He's the guy that not only did it on the course, but then
after the course,
then you were talking about what he did after the course. So, So
he reminds me of like the determination and the hammer-headedness of Tomac.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Because he's got that in him. It's like he just likes riding a bike, cross country, downhill, doesn't matter. But he's got that other, the party side, which is obviously, important too.
Yeah. Some of the things I wanted to ask you about, and you touched on one already, is like some of the keys to his success. And we talked about the Kona and the rigid bike. And in the book, you say like multiple times, you think like this, because he actually raced some downhill races on a rigid bike.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
To me, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And he won them. Yeah, he won them.
Yeah. Right. Oh. And the companies kept sending him, and my partner Dan here is we call him the guru, the suspension guru, but they kept sending him forks, and he's just like, nah, I don't want it. It's too wishy-washy. But how much do you think that played, like the skills that he learned on those rigid bikes early on? How much do you think that impacted his success when he got better gear and better equipment in the future?
I think probably, I don't know how old you are, but I think if we're roughly within 10 years of each other in age, we'll all know that if you can ride a rigid bike fast over loose terrain or pick your way through rocks or ride cambers or whatever it is, you are going to have way more of an advantage than someone who doesn't know how to do that and has only ridden a suspension bike.
I totally agree with that. That's for sure.
And so I think that was key. What was also key was if you go on YouTube or whatever, wherever you go to have a look at him riding, you just type in the places where he rode, which were just up the road for him, which is the Chapeltown Woods and the woods that were just on his back door.
Yep.
You'll see that it's really gnarly, fast, horrible, pick your way through stones, single track stuff, but he's doing it at such a high speed.
Yeah.
And the thing is with Steve's riding style, you can see how he weights the pedals really intelligently and will ride a line by pushing on the pedals, which you learn that when you're riding a rigid bike.
Yeah.
It's very different on a fully suspended bike, and especially now with how good they are, and also the fact that they've dumbed down downhill tracks, a lot of them, especially on the World Cup. The bike almost, I'm not saying it covers up a multitude of sins, the modern day downhill bike.
Yeah.
As opposed to what they were having to ride back then. Well, like that. If you look at that bike you were riding, that you and Nigel rode, the Intense. I mean, that was state of the art back then. But if you look at that now, it was short wheelbase, completely wrong riding position, and the rest of it. But it taught you to ride in a way where you would have to pick your way down and through things.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you didn't, you're going to come unstuck. Whereas 29-inch wheels and I don't know what the suspension they change, don't they, how they set the bikes up, but the travel on suspension, the rebound and all that stuff is It's very different now.
I got one of those old Intenses in the garage, and I can go out and hit the trail on it, and it's like a cross country suspension or geometry now.
Yeah,
you know, it's amazing.
crazy.
Yeah.
You know, short top tube, like really steep head angle compared to cross country bikes that we're selling in the shops right now. And I totally get that, because during COVID, I sold all my bikes and I had to pull out one of my old ones and start riding it on the trails, you know, until the bikes became available. And 26-inch wheel out at some of the trails that we ride, which are really rocky and lots of wheel grabs. And it was alarming how unstable it is compared to a modern bike. And we were careening down the hills. I remember racing in a World Cup at Durango, and I'm pretty sure Steve was there, but I'm not 100%. But that terrain, you know, it was just insane. And then a couple years later, they just started, like you said, dumbing down the courses, and they would get more aerial, more machine built jumps, gaps, you know, more impressive to watch. Cause
Right. For the spectators.
yeah, because it's hard to appreciate like
Going off a rock.
what you're doing through a rock garden. Yeah. So it's definitely different now. So
Well, Tim, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I agree with your point. It helped massively.
yeah.
That era of his riding.
If we keep pulling the thread
Yeah.
on like the attributes from his youth or from his upbringing that made him, that contributed to him being super successful, you know, after living in England for a couple of years, like, let's face it, the weather's like shite in England. It just is awful.
Well, especially where Steve lives, because
Right.
I live in the south coast. It's way better down here weather-wise, but I think that's helped Steve as well, because of the weather. Steve will go out and ride in. It doesn't matter what the weather's like for him. He doesn't care. So he's learnt to ride and drift and all that in all different, you know, situations. And obviously it's helped it. You look at the World Cup.
Yeah.
You know, you had a lot of them, especially when you would go to Canada at Mount St. Anne. I can't remember seeing that many dry races there
Right.
that they had in World Cup. I'm sure there have been some, but not too many. So I think, you know, it's helped him, the terrain he's ridden on, for sure.
Yeah. I can't ride roots or moisture to save my life.
Well, yeah, we live in the desert,
Yeah.
so we don't get rain here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can handle rock gardens, no problem. But man, you get a root in front of me and I start freaking out. So, but it's very different. So in this book, you know, one of the things that we want to talk about is this book, you know, and you helped write this book, and
Well, he wrote the book.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I keep saying that because it's about Steve Peat, so I think Steve wrote it.
And it's written in the first person as if Steve wrote it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And so you have to kind of wrap your head around the fact that,
Yeah,
you know.
they call it ghost writing, I think, is the technical term. But and writing it in that, you know, I think it helps that I know him quite well, and we had some conversations. So every chapter, how it would work was that I'd write a chapter on what I thought would be of interest and what we could bring forth from conversations we'd had that I'd recorded. So I'd have literally hundreds of, probably over 100 hours of audio, and I'd pick some stuff, I'd write that up, edit it, send it to Steve, and Steve would, when he would be away, would be ticking off, yeah, that's great, change that bit, do that bit. And to be honest with you, that was getting the time for Steve to do the editing was hard, because he's a busy lad, you know.
Yeah.
He's a very busy lad. And so that's how we moved through the book, was literally mostly linearly, you know, one chapter after another, except there was a few that I kind of thought I wasn't sure where they'd fit. And, you know, I think 100,000 to write, the publishers told me you got to do about 100,000 words, and then it's going to end up down probably maybe 80. I don't know how many words that book is, but was it 228 pages or something like that?
You know, I read it on the Nook e-reader, which is Barnes and Noble's. I don't know if you guys have Barnes and Noble's there, but it was 285 pages on that e-reader.
Yeah. So, you know, that's how it was written. So Steve even though I've written it, Steve has read and corrected the bits, every single bit of the book.
That's awesome.
You know, and sometimes you might find that if someone's ghost written a book, the person they've written it about has not been involved in it. But how I wanted to do it with Steve was I wanted him to be involved in it every step of the way. And the conversation that we'd had about it, the two of us, was that you don't want someone else later on, or I didn't personally want someone else later on to go, oh, we could do another book about Steve Peat.
You wanted to write the full story.
It's like, no, you fucking can't. Sorry. It's my language, but
you're good.
That's been done. So, not gonna happen.
Well, we want to get people to read this book, so we don't want to give away stuff.
No,
but at the same time, is there any kind of nuggets that you want to throw out there, like things that
surprised you?
Yeah, maybe that surprised you. Like, so you're like, wow, I had no idea that. Little teasers that we can give people.
I think they're interesting things that have happened in there, so I won't give them away. But his meeting when he had the first initial meeting with Roskopp
from the Syndicate from Santa Cruz, Rob Roskopp.
If you want to know about when it really starts to kick off and where he feels it's starting, like, and up until then, good time. He's been on GT, been on a great team, been on Orange. He's ridden for his country, but that meeting there is very, very important. I think the bits about his childhood are really the bits that aren't about mountain biking are just as, for me, probably not more interesting. But he's like when you look at success, and we all can be fascinated with it,
right? In
what makes great riders or great musicians or whatever it is. You're never quite sure how those flowers grow in the garden, like where they come from, where's the nutrition come from, how do they get formed? Mm-hmm. And I think his willingness, and I see this as a gift that he gave me, and that might be to do with because he felt safe with me digging about his character, but I wanted to really dig in, like to find out and tell his story. It wasn't ever about me. I didn't want to be on the I didn't want to be named.
Yeah.
They put my name on the book. I didn't want my name on the book. I don't mind now that they've done it.
Yeah.
But the reason I didn't want my name on the book was because I was able to. I know this will sound odd. Like when actors talk about becoming method actors.
Yeah.
I was writing it. I didn't write it as me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You channeled Steve.
And I didn't. I kind of got into a weird trance state, and of which I would, and you'll laugh, I wrote all of it, most of it when I'd have a beer, because I was, and I'm not a big drinker. I'm not like in any way, but I wanted to bring the spirit of Steve through and have him talk through me. So I ended up being like his puppet, if you know what I mean. Like it's really him speaking through me, and just the fact that I can write, like that's I think a bit, that I have that ability to be able to do that, and that was what was the most important thing for both of us, really, was that it was only ever about him. And I think that early part of the book, I think, sets the stage for you to understand how that next bit started. And I think that bits, I'm not going to give any bits away about his childhood and what he got up to, and also team riders and the rest of it. I just think as a book, you want it to be like a good meal, don't you? Like there's a starter. You've had your, how do you like your starters, and it's like, well, how do you want your steak? Do you want it medium? Do you want it rare? Are you a vegetarian? Well, there's something in there for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's how I wanted the book to be. And I think with Steve, what it's done, and this is what we hoped to do, and maybe why he might have chosen me to write it, is that I always think that there's like some people write like in the same way that the mountain biking might be portrayed by TV, where they have this idea of who the viewer is or who the reader is, and they think there's this, they've got this duty, like which they have at mountain biking at the minute. It's happening in Supercross, where they kind of dumb things down a bit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like let's have a motorway there. It doesn't need to be too technical there. Everybody needs to see all the races closer together time wise. This is not that, for me and for him, not a way to write the book. What we wanted to do was almost write the book like we wanted downhill mountain biking to be, which was all the Nadgery, horrible terrain, the good terrain, the whole shebang, you know?
Yeah.
And from top to bottom. And so I think it's difficult to, in a book like that, it's difficult to pull bits out because it just follows a narrative of a series of years where someone is haunted by an what's the French kiddie that rode Sun? Excuse me for not remembering. That beat him at the World Championships. What's his name?
Nico.
Oh yeah.
Haunted by Nico. You know, and that's there. You know, that's there in the book. You know, that and it's real. It's not that's not made up by the press. That's Steve really, really, really wanting to beat Nico.
Yeah.
You know, and what's in his mind at the time, how frustrating it is when he doesn't beat him, how amazing it is when he does. But you don't, you know, I can say that, but it's very different than how it reads in the book.
Yeah.
But for anybody that wants to know what it's like being on the road, I don't know, what are they on the road? 6 months of the year?
Yeah.
All over.
Sure.
Yeah.
At least, and Steve doesn't say no to anything as well. So you've got to understand that kind of makes his world bigger as well. Then, yeah, I think you'd be quite surprised by reading it, because I think it is so much different than what, if you typed in the word Steve Peat online now, it's very different than what you'd get.
That's
from seeing online.
Yeah, you guys didn't pull any punches at all.
No.
I mean, it was in the amount of, like, one of the things that floored me, Tim, was like the amount of details. And I was trying to figure out early in the book, like, how in the hell does you know, regardless of whether you wrote it or Steve wrote it, how do you remember something that happened like 30 years ago in this much detail? And it wasn't until you mentioned the diaries, which you actually reference in the book, that I figured out that's where the details are coming from.
Yeah, and they're in there, and then I've had to timestamp it by going back and finding the race.
Yeah.
And so I've watched the race, and I know I'm having to correct it. I was going, no, it's not that bit. Do you remember you said that? He goes, oh, well, I wrote that bit a day after that bit, and I'd forgotten that bit. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, so we had to correct all that. And so, you know, when you're doing this stuff, it takes absolutely ages to do it. You know what I mean? Because the last thing we wanted was someone to read it and go, no, that's not what happened there.
Yeah,
you know, and you don't want any of that artistic license crap in it either.
Yeah.
You know, that would be the worst thing in a Steve Peat book, because you don't need any artistic license. It's what it is, you know.
Yeah, you don't need to dramatize it.
Yeah,
no,
he's got the drama.
It's already there.
Yeah, true. You know, and there's stuff that's been left out, you know, for good reason, you know.
Yeah.
You know, that'll be down to the lawyers looking at stuff and thinking, well, you can't put that in, or whatever it is. But there wasn't too much of that. But I'm sure that, you know, the powers that be were just like, no, that's it. We're not doing that bit. But yeah.
Is there any little secrets that come out that you think people will get a kick out of trying to find?
I think the whole things are revealing.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean, like, it would be like if you look at Steve as a bit of origami. That's thing is the book allows you to unfold it bit by bit and see into the folds and the shadows and the little bits. I wouldn't say there's any secrets in there. I would say it's just an honest revealing of a thorough, well-lived mountain bike career.
Yeah. Now, is there anything in the book about what he's doing now? How far forward did you go?
A little bit. I didn't want to do too much about that because I think that for me, the interest, and that may be something Steve wants to do later.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to do that. And we talked about that, and we said we'd stop at what we thought would be the world's. But there is a mention of, like, he's got a very, very successful company that make cleaning products, handle grips.
Petey's,
that's
right?
run.
Yep.
That's run with Martin Murray, who's Stephen Murray's brother. I don't know whether you know, but you know the Murray's family. So you know Stephen Murray, who broke his neck doing the double backflip.
Yeah.
At the X Games.
Oh yeah.
Well, Martin Murray runs with Steve, runs the company that do the cleaning products. So he does that. He's still heavily involved with Santa Cruz. They're all sponsored by Fox now, so he's doing that. I think he's an ambassador for. I got a funny feeling he's an ambassador for Triumph motorbikes.
Interesting.
Nice. Yeah.
So it's a full on job being Steve Peat.
Yeah.
He loves it.
He's not fading away. He's still going. That's my point. Is like when this book ends, it doesn't end Steve. He's still going. So
Steve's 100% then. He's 100% now.
Yeah.
It's not changed. It's just different. That's what's so impressive about it, is that he's just one of those people that, people like myself, I've had success in sports, but I know in my own character that I would never have had a career like him, because I'm not. He's just one of those people that they only come along, every now and again.
Yeah,
and we're lucky to witness it, because they are quite unique.
It seemed like through the book that he was doing his best when he had a rival. And you talked about Nico, and you have several chapters dedicated, or at least talk during that time when he was going against Nico. And then I think Nico fell off at some point, and then that was replaced by Greg Minnaar. Did I get that right? As his rival?
Yeah, Sam.
Yeah,
Sam and
Samuel.
Yep.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it, to get when you're trying to be motivated. All right, you're coming down a hill on your own, and you've got to do the best you can, and you want to go as fast as you can. Sometimes it does help if you've got a bit of a niggle, and there's someone you enjoy beating and rubbing their nose in it a bit, in the same way that it might be the same for them,
Right.
And that can be part of it. Those things, like you're saying, they don't always last too long. Somebody might fall off the pace, let's say, for whatever. I think the interesting thing with Steve is that, like you look at winning the Worlds, it's probably the one time that he doubted. He did have so many doubts.
Yeah.
And I have to go back to real basics to work out how to win that race. And I don't think, if you read in the book, I think he probably says it, is that it didn't start like, I've got to win the Worlds. It started by, I don't even know whether I want to go.
I've been there.
So,
yeah. And then he got some advice from someone, right, that said, just go and every day solve one problem, or tackle one issue. Yeah.
So I think he's. I think we covered probably everything. Like in the book, we covered probably everything that you could cover in what was his race career. And what he did in the off season. Yeah. What did he eat? Great. He ate loads of food. And ate what he wanted when he wanted. And there's that comment, I've seen it on a review somewhere, where someone said they found it really funny that Steve said that he was getting serious about training, so he stopped drinking lager and started drinking Guinness
because he thought that was better for him.
But Steve,
it's a meal.
But he actually did believe that, like that was a serious thing. So it's not like it's probably a lot different mentality than maybe, I don't know, someone in the Tour de France is having,
right?
With their nutritionalist,
yeah,
and and obviously we had big difference when Kathy came along with Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
You know, that I think is a massive change. So yeah, I think those pivotal bits are covered in the book. The bits you're talking about, what are the pivotal bits? You know, they're in there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. I think of my little world, and, you know, the same thing. I had nemesises, you know, on one season, you know, that you're going back and forth and trying to beat. Sometimes they were my own teammates, you know, and I'm trying to beat my own teammates. And then nutrition. I mean, back in the day, we used to just drink flat Pepsi or Coke, you know, put that in the water bottle and let it defizz. And then all of a sudden there was this revolution in nutrition, and he was right on the cusp of that. So he's not far off, you know, figuring out what you're going to eat before a race.
Nowadays is a big deal.
Yeah. But back then it was still a big deal, but you were doing it with just regular stuff, and you didn't have like a nutritionist or anything like that. You just kind of had to figure out what works for you, what didn't upset your stomach, what didn't make you throw up at the end of the race, things like that. So it's pretty crazy. So
I think he was lucky as well with the publisher that chose him, because Vertebrate, they publish books on rock climbing outdoors. They're climbers, and I don't know. You know, you've got some serious mountains and walls of rock in your country.
Yep.
Yeah, they're an interesting bunch, those people. And when you kind of read about their exploits, they're it's not something that your mainstream publisher is going to pick up on as a story about some climber, not averagely. And I think with Vertebrate, which is the name of the publisher, so they're from Sheffield. They're from the same
town he's from.
Same city that Steve's from. I think that book would have been very difficult to get written if it would have been a more mainstream, bigger publisher. I think they were really accommodating to the fact that he's a character and had a story to tell, and they were, you know, I think they would have much rather it would have been written much quicker. I mean, it took over 3 years.
Oh wow! Did it take 3 years?
Oh yeah. It took, yeah, and that, you know, and that's not how they envisaged it. But they allowed that to continue, so we could finish it, do it right, and we did get it right. And I think as a title amongst their titles, I think it's something, you know, I'm hoping that, you know, you look back on that in 10 years' time, and the reviews on that book will hopefully
rise to the top,
warm them in some way, you know, of the commitment and the fact that they plumped up the money to get it done, you know. And both of us are very, very grateful for them doing that, because, you know, we've had free hand. At no time did they phone up and say you can't do this or you can't do that. It was more like, we've done this, we're doing another chapter on this. And I was giving them feedback all the time, so we had a lot of support.
Do you think that this is a good formula? Because it sounds like the formula that you've kind of developed, I'm sure other people have too, but your keys are you know the person, you got to know them, you participated in the activities they do, and then you can deep dive into their lives and, like you said, almost become a method writer for them. You know, do you think that's a formula that's going to be super successful? And are you going to do it? Are you going to do it again?
I haven't got any plans to do it again. I don't know what it would be like if someone asked me, and it would have to do with who they were or what I knew about them.
Right.
But I think I never. The money was, you know, you don't get a lot of money for writing for what you write for 100,000 words. You know, it's much more profitable to be a feature writer in a dirt magazine than it is to write a book. I don't know what Steve's fee was, but that's not why I wrote it. I felt privileged to be chosen to write it, and I felt like I could really, after speaking to him about it and the publisher, I thought, and I'd said to him, I said, there's 3 books that could be written about him. And I said, and they'll all be different. I said, but this is what mine will be like from what I know about him. and how I feel about him. And so I never really approached it in a way where it was about the commercial aspect of how it had to be about him, right, and only about him. Because if I didn't do that, I've completely failed in my job as being a ghostwriter.
Yeah.
Like that's my job, is for Steve to come through me. It's not for me to just quickly knock out 100,000 words and choose a load of stuff that's already out there and a few other little stories we've had when we've got drunk and oh ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
No, that's not going to happen with me. I really did want to tell his story, and I feel very, very lucky and privileged that he did let me do it. I think I've between us, I think I'm hoping he can hold the book and think, well, that's me in it. Because there's none of me in it.
Yeah.
It's all him.
I think that's a hard combo to get sometimes, to, for somebody to want, to put something like this out there, and then to actually be able to find somebody they connect with, who can then actually write. Right. I mean, you can always have friends, but having a writer as a friend who can actually tell your story for you with that kind of heart is going to be hard to produce.
Anyway. So. Tim, did you guys have any disagreements about what went in or what did not go in the book throughout the process? You and Steve?
We had a couple of things where we weren't sure how to approach a couple of matters that would draw people's names into something that possibly didn't need to be named.
Protect the innocent.
Simply because... which I said to Steve, because he wasn't sure about it, I wasn't sure about it, and I just said to him, look, it's your book, anyway. It's not. I can tell you what I think, but it's not up to me. I said, but if you want me to help you say that thing without it involving any of the things that you're worried about it, there's another way of doing it. Why don't we look at it in this way? We did that a couple of times, and they were just like they weren't big. They were big topics, but they were easily remedied by taking, like a different fork and just, it's the same thing, but different, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And, it didn't take away from the book. The same points were made about it. It's just about. It's very difficult when you're young, and you're out, and your mates are having fun, and you're having fun, and you're growing up in a city. You like going out, and all of a sudden you've got an interest in something, and they've got their interest in that, and it's not what you're doing. And for you to, it's like a fork appears, like it's like,
yeah. And
the pull's hard, because if that's all your mates and that's what they're doing, and it's fun and you like it, and I think luckily for Steve, mountain biking came along at the right time.
Yeah, and what he's talking about is basically hard drugs.
Oh yeah,
I think
Steve,
some of Steve's mates were going down that path, and he did not take that path.
Yeah, I think that's a hard part for him, because he's had mates that haven't made it.
Right?
Yeah,
and he has. There's been casualties, which is a shame. But I think luckily we'll all know, whether it's mountain biking, BMX, motocross, it's all saved a few of us from different lives, having that in those interests and passions about things that get us out of too many thinking too much. That's probably a better way of putting it. Maybe
I've got one.
I can't speak for Steve.
I got one of my teammates who had to make a decision of hanging out and racing with us, or continuing to be in a death metal band. and so we saved him from being in a death metal band. so
if it was a punk band, it would have been okay.
No, it was full on metal, like gwar kind of death metal. So we saved him from that. So I can say I feel like I did a good thing there. So
well, Tim, one of the things that I thought you did a great job at, as I went through the book, I really kind of felt and understood like Steve's relationship with his dad and how that impacted him. Really saw like I said earlier, like his rivalries. I really felt like that, like I was in there with him. And then like he lost throughout the book. You mentioned that he's lost several people in his life and like the impact that had on him. So I wanted to commend you on. You did a great job with the words that you chose, telling that story, because I really felt it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, when you go on a journey, when you read a book, you don't know where you're going to be taken, do you? So there's an element of you where you just have to let go and you're on your way.
Yeah.
And I have to be, when I was writing it, I was mindful of that. And so was Steve, that you're going to remind people of things. They're going to think about things in their lives that might have been similar or whatever it is. So, yeah, you try and be delicate about things. Look at Jason McCroy dying.
Yeah.
I've no idea what that was like, seeing him leave a house when they don't want him to leave the house. They want him to stay. And that's the last time they see him.
He left. They had a group at a party at the house, and he left and took his motorcycle. And the last thing they saw was him riding out. And I think he was knocked off the road by a lorry. That's a
big truck.
Big truck.
Yeah.
And another lorry hit him, I think, and killed him, if I remember the story correctly.
Yeah. So, just tough things.
Yeah.
For young lads to go through, not great, and that's when you're a close-knit community of people as well, then, I think they give him, you can read in the book, they give him a good send-off and the rest of it. But like you talk to Steve about it, everybody's still upset about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a heartbreaking story, it's not great.
Yeah, it's tough. Well, hey, the book is Forged by Speed, The Making of a Mountain Bike World Champion, autobiography of Steve Peat, one of the best mountain bikers ever. I guess not was, but continues to be a great mountain biker.
That's the thing that I want everybody to remember is he's still there. He's still doing a ton of stuff.
Yeah,
he's
the
pretty
coach
amazing.
and team manager of the Syndicate.
Yep.
I think he's got his company, Petey's
and Royal.
Royal, he actually sold his shares in Royal.
Oh, did he?
Yep.
Oh, nice.
But
I still have my Royal jacket.
Yeah, that was an interesting merchandising company that I think their whole mission was to focus on rider development. They did a lot of rider development, young rider development.
Yeah, he's been big influence. I think I have no doubt that in the future he's going to start being more of a mentor to people. I think that's a big portion of what athletes tend to go towards as they get older in life.
Yeah, he's 50 years old now.
Yeah, they have their own kids coming up, or friends their age kids, and they start to get into that role. And so I'm excited to see that. I saw that with Sean Palmer. It was crazy. Sean Palmer took over a junior development team, and I don't know if you know Sean Palmer.
Sean was tight with Steve. That's a big part of the book.
Not always the best role model, but running a junior development team.
Depending on how you like your role models.
Yeah, exactly.
They got into some debauchery up in Tahoe for sure.
Oh, big time.
Which is prevalent in the book.
Yeah. So this book's got everything. It's I'm really excited for people to read it. To kind of see a little bit of what a rider has to go through, to see how he integrated his life into his riding. And then I think Tim just did such a great job of like channeling Steve and bringing it out. And man, having that many, that much resource at your hands really makes it nice. It's a super deep read. So
the book's available. The book's available today as an ebook in Tim. 90% of our listeners are in the United States, so available on Amazon Kindle and Barnes & Noble's Nook. It looks like the hard copies are not yet available, at least on Amazon in the U.S. Looks like December 31st, those books will be available, so you can get a hard copy on December 31st, but you can get the Kindle version right now. I think it is available on Amazon UK for our folks across the pond. Steve, you got any final thoughts for our listeners, brother?
No, the only thing... I think Steve's just doing the audiobook version now.
Is
nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's doing it. He's doing it, which would be good because he's got a really good speaking voice.
That's awesome.
Right on.
So that would be good. Just to this is a funny thing that you guys will, I think some of your listeners will find funny. I needed a working title for it. When, like in my brain, I was just like, what's it going to be called? I had a funny feeling the publisher wouldn't use any of my suggestions, probably because they were just a little bit left of center or whatever you want to call it. But one of them was, there's a lovely picture of Steve in the book. As you open the book on, I think probably page 2 or 3, he's probably, I don't know, 17, 18 with a piss pot helmet on his head. And it's just got like a hammerhead sticker on the helmet. You can just barely read it. It's in black and white, the picture.
Oh, yeah.
And it just says hammerhead, which of course is what Steve is. Like he's the original hammerhead.
Yeah,
we were pausing there.
Yeah,
we're looking at the picture right now.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's it. So that's got So I was just, that would have been for me quite a good title, but like I said, at Dirt we were always left to center, so maybe that wasn't. But as I started to kind of get more into it, I was just like, well, this is 11. Like Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
It
goes all the way to 11.
He goes, and he goes, but what if just make 10 louder? And Steve would be just like, no, but it's not 11.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What I'm trying to explain is, and it was a serious thing, is a paradox. Is Steve is always, for me, it's one more than everything else.
Oh,
because that's what makes him unique. There is something magical. You speak to people that he's spoken to, and they light up. They actually light up. He takes time to speak to people. You can go and have a beer with him. You could walk into a pub and not know him, and you could have a beer with him. One of those examples is in the book where he walks into a pub in down by the Forest of Dean. So he's gone down there. He's in a pub in the Forest of Dean. He's just been riding, but got normal gear on.
Yep.
And he just bumps into a chap at the bar and just starts talking to him. And this is just as he's put the orange deal together. And he hasn't got enough money for Andy Kiffin. So he needs some money. He's got no money for a mechanic. Mm-hmm. And so he starts talking to this guy. And the bloke says, how are you getting on? He goes, oh, all right. He said, well, I'm just trying to put a bit of a deal together. What do you do? And, I've just sold my business. And, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just on. And Steve just tells him this story about he's just signed with Orange. He's really over the moon, but not for much money. And the guy just goes, well, I'll pay Andy's money. I've got some money. I'll give you the money for Andy Kiffin. And this is a bloke that he's met in a pub.
So he got his mechanic funded.
That is amazing.
And this is what I mean about that paradox of being 11. It's like it is an in joke, of course, which is hilarious because it's probably one of the funniest things ever, isn't it? The Spinal Tap.
Yes.
But the point is that he goes into territory, and I don't know how. It's just his character, how he's made. He's just a bit different, and he's a bit special for me, so I'm just hoping that I've got a bit of that across. But the only way you're ever really going to know that is if anybody is out there and they meet and he's anywhere, go and say hello to him, because he's the kind of guy you can just talk to and buy him a beer. He'll be over the moon.
Buy him a beer and read the book.
Yeah, get the book.
Tim, thanks a lot, brother. Really appreciate you taking some time with us. I really
appreciate the time, gentlemen. Yeah, and hope people buy it and read it and enjoy it. And if they don't, you haven't got my email address, and don't send me any bad reviews.
That's awesome. Thanks, Tim.